Live from Valhalla. What is today? Thursday. Yes, today is Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, or evening. Happy time zone, everyone, and welcome to Control. We are we are the RPG Valkyries. Golly, I can't talk today. Putting on Speedrun Ragnarok 2022 in honor of Take This, a wonderful charity which focuses on informing the gaming community about mental health issues, providing education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reducing the overall stigma around mental illness. What a wonderful cause, and we are so happy to be supporting it today. Well, I think it's time to jump into our next round, which is Control by Demonic. And I think we are in not only for a treat, but for a trip. Demonic, we're ready for you.
Alright, hey there everybody, my name is Demonic Robots and welcome to Control. If you haven't heard of this game, it is a third-person shooter by Remedy Games, who are known for Alan Wake and Max Payne. And yeah, we're gonna get started right here. This is gonna be the any percent category, meaning that we have no restrictions on the run. And time is gonna start when we skip the opening cutscene. I'll give a little bit of tidbit of lore, but we are playing as Jessie, who is looking for her missing brother and tracks him down to the basically a secret government facility, which she eventually becomes a part of as an employee. So we're gonna get started here. I'm gonna do a countdown, and then we can get started. 3, 2, 1, go. So welcome to the FBC, the Federal Bureau of Control. This is essentially a AAA SCP game where this is a government body that controls paranormal objects and entities. So there's things like a clock that will constantly reproduce itself and make multiples of itself. There's a fridge that eats people, weird stuff like that. We are coming in during what is a lockdown, as the facility has been overridden with a evil entity called the Hiss, and this entity is trying to take control of the employees and, you know, just kind of causing all these bad things. Jessie has just been hired as the janitor's assistant. We talked to him through skipping the cutscenes. And now she's gonna work her way all the way up to the director of the Federal Bureau of Control. So it's a real classic boomer tale right here. We're gonna be picking up this weapon right here. This is the service weapon, and this is our first object of power in OOP, and oops, where essentially it is a gun that can take multiple forms and also never runs out of ammo. So in this game, the ammo works kind of like the stamina meter from a Dark Souls game, where essentially after a few seconds it'll recharge. We also have a melee option right here, but as you can see, this is a very weird game. So we're gonna get teleported to this like little training area and get a little combat tutorial. This opening area is going to be relatively glitchless, but as the game goes on and as we get more abilities, they kind of unlock new options for us. So a general rule of thumb for this run is that whenever we get a new power of some kind, it'll essentially allow us to break the game, which is fun. I'm also going to do something right here. This is a camera manipulation. I'll do a more exaggerated one here in a moment. Some enemies always spawn in the same spot, and then sometimes they will spawn depending on where your character is looking. Ooh, nice, we got that little quick kill. So we will sometimes be looking off into corners or other weird spots in order to get favorable spawns, like right here. We're going to be looking over into this corner, and this should spawn the enemies in a good position for us to fight them. So right now we don't really have too many options for combat. The gun is one that we're actually not going to use too much of later on in the run once we get more powers, but for now this is going to be basically just us trying to optimize the combat as much as possible. We also have a mini boss right here. It's not an actual boss, it is kind of just a souped up normal enemy right here. In this run, we are actually only going to be fighting one boss, so we aren't going to be running into too many of those. But yeah, that was the opening area. We're going to be touching this. This is a control point. Essentially, it is a bonfire from a Dark Souls game. We can teleport to it, we can fast travel from it, we can upgrade abilities and so on and so forth. So they're going to be pretty important. They also have a lore-wise of shifting what's called the oldest house, which is the building that we're in. It's kind of like the Doctor Who TARDIS, where it is bigger on the inside than it is the outside, and it is a shifting place. So it is constantly going to be changing forms and things like that. And then here we go. We are going to be meeting some employees of the FBC. So pretty much everybody is getting taken over by the Hiss. And unfortunately, we can't save them. There's nothing that we can do to help them. However, if they're wearing what these are, these HRA machines, they are protected from the Hiss and won't get taken over. It is also a very important lore note that Jessie obviously does not need one of these in order to avoid getting taken over by the Hiss. She actually has a little voice in her head that is tied to an incident from her childhood that is kind of protecting her from the Hiss, and that is called Polaris. So that's why we're not running around with one of the HRA machines like everybody else. Then here we have some more enemy spawns and manipulations. And that's weird. I got one less enemy than I normally should have. Interesting. But we're going to continue on right here. There's going to be some shielded enemies. They basically are very resistant to bullets. So if there is a shielded enemy in front of me, I'm either going to be trying to launch an object at them of some kind, or I'm going to be trying to melee them. And that'll break it immediately in comparison to if I try to shoot them, where it'll take a lot longer. Right now we're heading over to the hotline, which is another object of power. And we need to do something on the way there. We're going to be getting a new power, and this is one of the more important ones. This is going to be our launch. So the launch ability will let us throw things with our mind, and bonk, just like that. So we're going to be throwing things with our mind, and also it is very useful for actually getting out of bounds. Something that's pretty common is that whenever we get a new power, we'll break the game in some way. And that's going to be the case here. So we're going to do a little bit of a tutorial here. This is going to be our main ability. This game kind of has a soft like leveling system. And we don't really level up too much in the run. So because like we don't really get any mods or upgrades for our service weapon, it becomes very underpowered later on, and we don't get any of the other forms. So we're basically going to be using launch to kind of make up for the fact that we are like so underleveled in this regard. Typically you have like automatic aim. However, you are able to hit multiple enemies with it. So if it's like getting pulled over to you and there's an enemy in the way, it'll hit them. Or if you know, you can kind of get like collaterals where you can hit multiple at the same time like that. But here we go. This is gonna be the first skip. A lot of people, if you've done your casual playthroughs of this game, you probably remember this part. It was probably very frustrating for you because this is one of the few bosses that you actually have to fight in the game. Normally you only have to fight 2 bosses. However, we're going to be skipping it with a little box strat right here. Hold on, let me just stop getting interrupted by these guys. There we go. So this is Tomasi. Normally we would fight him and we'd have to do a bunch of stuff, and it's not very fun. So we're going to do a little skip here. This is called No Mossy. I'm going to wedge myself up here. There we go. So we got ourselves stuck inside of that object with launch because we are playing on the earliest patch. So whenever you lift an object, it kind of loses collision. And then when you drop the object, it gains back that collision. And when you are stuck in something in this game, it'll automatically push you upwards to get you unstuck. And if there is a wall nearby, the walls are paper thin, so it'll sometimes be able to push us through that. And we are able to skip that boss fight entirely. So now we have some lore things going on right now. This is the Ocean View Motel. It's basically, usually you have to like solve a puzzle and then you unlock a bridge or a door of some kind. But right now we're just going to be getting a little bit of lore as we finish up this mission. So now would be a good time for donations.
Sounds good. Well, I want to alert everyone to another donation target that I have not mentioned yet. We've got a Mystic Bell speedrun coming up in about 4 hours, and we have the donation incentive to make the true ending a little bit easier. We are just over $100 from that. $137 out of 250. So if you would like to make the ending just a little bit smoother for our beleaguered speedrunner who will be doing this, then you have your opportunity.
Awesome. So we're going to be finishing up the level right here with picking up the hotline. This will allow us to properly talk to what's called the board, which is a mysterious entity that is helping us out. And we're also going to do our very first quit to menu. So whenever you quit to menu in this game, it'll automatically put you back to where the last control point was. And then by doing that, we can use it to teleport back to the beginning of the level because we need to talk to Emily again. Emily Pope, who's like a researcher that's kind of helping us out and is kind of our guide to the FBC. I made a comparison to SCP, which is a very famous kind of internet collection of stories. In those, they're usually a lot more malicious, and then here in the FBC, they're at least relatively a little bit nicer. At least they try to be. We're also going to be getting a couple of upgrades, but now that we have the hotline, we're able to communicate with the board and also with Director Trench, who we saw earlier, who was on the ground with the service weapon. Also going to do a little glitch right there to skip some dialogue. Director Trench was the former director before Jesse. It's also important to note that the service weapon, it can only be wielded by the director. So if you wield it, then you get the role. So that's kind of what happened to Jesse. But we're also able to communicate with him via the bullet that's in his brain, essentially. This is a very weird game, so there's some stuff like that that's kind of doesn't make any sense. But we're going to do another out of bounds right over here. As we are trying to fix the maintenance sector, we need to release basically the internal lockdown to access the other sectors of the facility. And first we need to stop the basically the thing that powers the house from blowing up. So we're actually going to be doing a side mission here. We used to only do one side mission, and now we're going to be doing 2 in this run. But this is to get a very important power. Shout out to the, I think, 2% of people who have not, or who have beaten the game and did not have this power. I'm so sorry. It's not fun. This is going to be our evade ability. So the evade ability is going to be our main movement and really enables us to cross a lot of gaps that we normally wouldn't be able to if we did not have it.
An object of power. How do you think it got?
So as you can see, we're getting our power from touching the carousel. Once again, Jessie is kind of special. She can find these altered items or objects of power and kind of bind with them and pull powers from them, which is a very cool little lore thing. There's a lot more powers and objects and things like that, and then, you know, some that we don't even see at all. So if you really like weird stuff, this is like definitely a game for you. So we're gonna do a small little skip right there. Just basically trying to optimize this little tutorial area as much as we can. Every single power basically has like one of these sections where you're supposed to go through it using the intended power. And a few of them we can actually skip around and do different things with, so it's pretty nice. But now we're going to be going to, not to the end of the level, but the way that this game works is that it's filled with a bunch of triggers to prevent soft locking. And if you skip these triggers, you can't finish the level, things won't spawn in, things like that. So we need to hit a couple of triggers in the level in order to unlock the very end part of it that we need to get to. It's actually very close by. We passed by it on the way over. So what we're doing right here is we're basically going to hit all of the triggers that we need to hit, and then we're going to go straight to the end of the level. So instead of being a good assistant, we are going to actually be a lazy assistant is what we call it, and not help the janitor save the entire facility. So we're just going to go to the end here, and then if everything went right, we should be able to just do this little fight right here. Here, get that one, and then there's one guy over here. Perfect. So hopefully I hit all the triggers right there. If not, we might need to do a little bit of running around again, but that should be okay. But as you can see here, this is the end of the level after you're supposed to have activated these cooling pumps and all that, which we didn't do. And there it is. Cool. So now we have protected the facility and lifted the internal lockdown. And now we are heading back to talk to Emily, who is going to tell us, hey, before you can go save your brother, you got to go do more stuff. And because we're the protagonist, of course, we're going to help everybody else with their problems. So now would be probably a good time for maybe 1 or 2 donations as we get ourselves upgraded.
All right, perfect. So I will give you 2 little blurbs here. So number 1, I've just been informed by the runner that the Mystic Bell True Ending Easier donation incentive actually just refers to doing the true ending instead of the any % ending. So slight correction there. If you want to see that true ending, definitely get those donations in. And the other one is, let's see here. Oh yes, Virtual Highlight is still at $250 out of $325. So if you don't want to see that non-random seed, we need $75 more. I know that we can get there, chat. That one is going to be coming up fairly soon today, so we don't want to dawdle too much. Back to you, Demonic.
All right, so we're having one of my favorite skips in the entire game. This is the research skip. This is one of the more extended out-of-bounds sections that we're going to be doing without our dash or without our levitation ability. So this one is really scary because if you fall, you basically have no way of saving it and no safety. I'm going to be going through this out-of-bounds area in a very weird way. I'm basically going to be hitting all of the triggers that I need to hit to prevent the game from soft locking from out of bounds, which the game doesn't really intend for you to do. So it's kind of scary because I have to walk in here and not get stuck. That should be good. And then we're like walking on the very seam of the map, completely blind. So again, can be kind of scary, but I think so far it's going okay. Dash over here. We want to avoid getting stuck on anything. And if we hear her talking, we hit all the triggers and we are good. So that skip went super well. Now we got some combat to do. This is a very big part of the run that most people don't realize. Everyone like thinks it's always going to be like skips and things like that. But in reality, a good majority of the run... Whoops, we didn't kill this guy. That's fine. A majority of the run is going to be optimizing this combat as much as possible and getting as many collaterals like that. That was a very good one. Got to keep track of all the enemies as well. 4 or 5. I think I missed one, but we should be fine. I'm trying to do this fight in a very specific order, so enemies spawn in ways that are good to me. So we got this big guy right here. As you can see, he shoots grenades, which are relatively easy to avoid. I'm going to try and get pull-throughs as much as we can, because it's basically getting 2 hits for only 1 energy. But there we go. That fight went super well. This is probably the most combat-intensive area of the game. Really, the game actually doesn't make you fight that many people. And if it does, we usually have like a good chunk of skips that we can do to avoid them. But this level is kind of notorious for having a lot of objective triggers and other things about it. I know the developers were like asked about it, like what happened during development and if it was like one of the weirder levels to work on, and they all kind of agreed with that. So we really can't skip too much more other than that opening area. I will show you though, the elevators in this game do not actually go up, they go sideways. So as you can see, my little icon is dragging diagonally down there. I also like to show that because it's funny, but it also shows a gameplay effect later on that we are able to move around when we have our map open, which is actually very important later on. Here we go. We're going to talk to Marshall, the former CIA operative who basically knows more about this facility than anybody else in the entire game, including some of the directors. And then we have some combat going on. We want to destroy those hiss balls as fast as we can. They are basically, they don't do damage, but they will heal everybody. which we do not want. So we like to focus them more. I'm also going to be trying to keep all the enemies in front of me right here to manipulate the spawns. So enemies will spawn in like that. Perfect. We don't want them to spawn like away from us. These guys will basically float over and then explode when they get nearby you. Oh, that's a little scary, but we are okay. This game has something where if you are taking lethal damage, so let's say you're taking 150% of your health, it'll drop you to 99% of your health and you'll be vulnerable. So you actually can't get one shot in this game, which is really nice. Unfortunately, there's no med packs in this game. There's no way to like heal like manually. The way they have to do it is you have to damage enemies and that'll make them drop these little blue tic tacs on the ground, and you have to use those to heal. So it can always be a little bit scary, but if you need health, or if I need health, you'll see me just like run forward into the enemies, trying to like scoop up the health packs before I die. But there we go. That is the research section fight. That is actually one of the harder ones to do optimally, because you have to have really good camera manipulations and spawns, and along with that, there's just like a lot of enemies, and we don't really have a lot of damage to work with. Normally I like to get a dash efficiency mod. It's random if it drops from one of the enemies that we fight. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Also have a little bit of puzzling right here. This is the HRA lab. These are what make the chest rigs that everybody is wearing to prevent from turning into a hiss monster. So we're gonna try and fix it, but we have to do a little bit of puzzling first. But while we're doing the puzzling, now would be a good time for any donations or blurbs that the host would like to read.
Sounds good. Well, I just want to remind everyone that if you are interested in learning more about Take This, then you can catch them every Monday at 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Pacific on their Twitch, which is twitch.tv/takethisorg. You can see them playing games featuring commentary from Dr. Kelly Dunlap and Dr. B, Take This Talks Dev with Eve Crevichet, Take This Talks Community with Dr. Rachel Cowart or Dr. Sarah Hayes, and sometimes even a mental health AMA. You can see the full description on Take This's community resources website. Just type !resources in chat. And we've been hearing from some of those doctors in the interviews that the marathon has been doing this week. Also, you can go to takethis.org, which has freely available stories of hope from people who are managing their mental health, as well as articles on mental health issues in gaming culture.
Awesome. So unfortunately, we did get the lab to start working. However, a piece of the BlackRock broke, and that is not great for us. So we are actually going to be helping out by doing a side quest first. This is called Threshold, and we have a joke between the runners where this is really the threshold of like whether or not your run goes through. This is like probably the hardest split in the entire game for a couple of reasons. The first reason is we have a really hard out of bounds that we have to start out with right here. We're going to be doing a side quest. We used to not do this for the longest time. But there is a specific glitch that we're going to be doing with a new power, and we need to go get that power first, and it's kind of out of the way. So I'm going to have to do a really scary out of bounds here. Okay, cool. So you basically have to land in bounds and let the level spawn in properly, which can be really scary. Then you have to fall down there, and sometimes you get stuck in a falling animation. And in this game, fall damage is based off of how long you're doing that falling animation, not the actual distance. So if you are stuck in a place doing the falling animation, you'll die because the game thinks that you're falling a super far height. But that skip went pretty well, and we're going to be picking up the shield ability. We're not going to be using it for combat, though. Why would we use a shield for combat? That's just silly. We're going to be using it for something else, but we need to get through this area. We're also going to be kind of doing a little skip right here. There we go. There we go. Always a really scary thing to do, but we got through it okay. Perfect. So we're gonna be doing something called Shielding McSorry. In this game, I mentioned how if the game is trying to push you out of objects, it'll push you upward. We're gonna trick the game into turning off the collision in the shield and turning it back on again, basically by reloading the level in a weird way. And this will basically constantly push us upwards into distances. This is very scary of a trick. It's very difficult to do and takes a lot of work to do. So hopefully everything with it goes well. This is going to be the first one. It's not as big as some of the others later on, but there we go. So as you can see right there, I overlapped my menu with the shield and teleported to another part of the sector of the level. Oops, we didn't hit the trigger. Teleporting to another part of the level using either control points or in this specific case, the elevator. And basically, it will break her collision while she's shielding, and the objects will make her fly off into the distance. It is controllable, however, it's also, oops, try that one more time. It is controllable, like I am able to somewhat control how I'm doing it, however, it's very volatile. So for example, I'm trying to go forward. What keys do you think I would be hitting to go forward? If the answer was back and left, you are correct. And it does change depending on how you're holding it. If you're mashing jump, what your camera angle is. Oops, that's a very new one. Again, there's a lot that goes into how this glitch works.
Like you do with me.
And it is currently not wanting to play around. We got the glide like perfectly the first time, but like I said, this game has a lot of objective triggers. So if you don't hit them properly, then stuff just like doesn't spawn in and doesn't work. Thankfully, you can just like go back and hit the triggers, no problems. You can't like really soft lock your game to where you can't complete it. But sometimes you do get that where like you show up somewhere and they're just like a prompt that's not there, and you're like, oh, cool, my run's dead. So now we got a little bit of puzzle. This one's actually more of a puzzle. You're basically supposed to match the rooms together and see what differences are going on. So we're going to do that by moving a couple objects, which is going to open this last room and give us the key. We're actually only doing this though to hit another objective trigger. We don't actually need to cross the bridge that we're opening up right here, because all we're going to do basically is do that. Gives us the mission updated, which means we hit the trigger and we are heading back. And now we're going to do a real big shieldy. So that one that we saw earlier was a pretty tiny one. This is one of the bigger ones and also one of the more scarier ones. So hopefully it goes well. Fingers crossed. Basically, this is going to be... Every single shieldy is different. So you kind of just have to remember how they work, where to look, what angles are the best, stuff like that. Okay, we're good. We landed on top. That's okay. I'm gonna let my energy refill for safety reasons. Then we're gonna drop down here and then drop down here. We can negate fall damage with our evade, and then we're gonna kill those two guys, and boom. That was the shieldy. That one went actually pretty well. It can be kind of scary. Sometimes you'll get sent off into the moon and you'll just like get a bunch of vertical speed really fast. Sometimes you'll take fall damage. It's a very scary trick, which we're gonna immediately do another one of. So right now we're kind of doing this level completely out of order. We're pretty much just like hitting all the triggers in a very weird way, because it doesn't really matter the order that you hit them in. Oops, this might be a problem. No, we're good. It doesn't matter the order that you hit them in. It just matters that you hit them. Gonna land right here, and then hopefully this goes well. I went a little too late. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to drop off of that and then dash, which will kind of carry my horizontal momentum and I'll stop falling. And I want to dash as that hallway is loading in, which can be kind of hard to do because sometimes the loads in this game change. So if it's a few seconds off, then you just end up dying. So we'll try that one more time here. Yeah, every single attempt has to like requires you to basically go back from somewhere and then rejoin. And also, as you can see, the out of bounds is not very well lit, so a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is basically just from having 1,000 hours in the game. I don't think I can save this. Yeah, I can't save it. All right, we're gonna do that one more attempt. But in the meantime, while I'm trying to do this again, now would be a good time for donations.
Fantastic. Well, we have a $20 donation from Carlin with no comment, but thank you for that generous donation. We're at $4,578 now, getting closer to that $5,000 mark, which I think we can hit by the end of the day. And also, to continue the theme of Take This that we have been discussing throughout the run, Take This travels to different conventions such as PAX, MagFest, and TwitchCon to reach out to the gaming community about mental health issues via informative panels. We have some of the speakers from Take This at Speedrun Ragnarok 2022, and we have another speaker coming up later tomorrow on Friday at 3:10 p.m. Pacific time, 6:10 Eastern. You won't want to miss that. That is going to be super helpful and informative.
You showed me the HR.
And I believe, I don't know for sure, but we've got PAX East coming up. I don't know for sure, but Take This very well could be there. That would be another wonderful reason to go.
So we have a little boss, not a boss fight right here. Ooh, this is bad. Okay, cool. I got the backup. So that was basically I can't remember. I think they're called Hiss Distorteds. Essentially, they are enemies that will turn invisible and then they'll like pop up right in front of you and jump scare you. Thankfully, it didn't get away in time. However, sometimes if you don't do that fight properly, it'll like go off into the distance and then disappear, which is really bad. We are almost to the end of the level, though. The end of the level is actually right where I'm teleporting to. It's like literally right here. However, we are still missing one more trigger, so we have to hit that. And then that will spawn in the object that we need to complete the level, which is great. Here we go. And normally you're supposed to unlock this door. However, if you touch it, that's like good enough for the trigger. So even though we don't have the proper access card for it, the game just goes, all right, yeah, you probably have it. So now we can go to the end of the level and we're going to do another shieldy. As you can see, this is when we like learned a shieldy, we didn't think it was going to be useful enough because we didn't like think that we would have, like, we just didn't think it was worth getting because it was like literally takes about 2 minutes to get it. So it really like wasn't worth it at the time. But because of a couple of runners in the community, they were doing some routing and then they routed it in. And basically the time it takes to get it is now like nothing compared to what it saves. It's like takes 2 minutes to get and then it's like a 7-minute time save. And for a run that was already like less than 50 minutes, that was kind of huge. So we're gonna head over here. I'm avoiding these guys. They're always scary. They're not just rocket shooters. They are homing rocket shooters. So they will actually follow you and curve around. So you have to be kind of careful about those. But thankfully we finished the level. Threshold is now officially done. This is like one of the scariest levels in the run because there's so many shieldies. And when you don't have levitation for your shieldy, oops, I don't want to do that. When you don't have levitation, which is a power that we get later on, it's like a very unsafe trick because you basically can't, just gain a bunch of height and then slowly fall down. But now we are heading over into the containment sector, and we have finally gone back to Jessie's main motivation for being here, being her brother missing. Which has been like her entire thing about this. So we're actually going to go finally save them. But first, before we do that, we have to fix the containment cell. So the Panopticon is where they house all of these dangerous objects and beings. Dylan is one of them. It turns out he is actually a very powerful psychic like Jessie as well. So we're going to go get him basically. And hopefully he is not taken over by the hiss, but we'll find out. Have a few more fights to do so, and we're also going to be doing the only boss fight that we do in any percent. There's 10 boss fights in the base version of the game, and basically we skip all of them. However, normally when you're playing this game, you will probably run into a few of them, but the only boss fights that are required to beat the game are Tomasi and this guy that we're going to be fighting up ahead. We can skip Tomasi, we cannot skip this one, unfortunately. But we can do a few skips getting there, of course. This is going to be a weird thing that we used to do a lot of, but we don't do anymore. This game essentially has like kind of a what's called a neum. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. This game has a neum. So as you can see, I just magically teleported there, seemingly from like the out of bounds. The reason for that is that when you mantle in this game on specific things, the game just kind of doesn't know where to put you. So we can kind of use it to teleport to like the 0, 0, 0 coordinates of like the loaded cell. So we're going to do that to get over here, and then we're going to do this and fall down here. Perfect. So this is the Ocean View Motel. These objects are always loaded in, even though you're supposed to like teleport to them in game and in lore. So they're just kind of like in a box, like super far out of the map or like out of the way. But if we're able to, we can just literally like magically fly over there with our out of bounds stuff. And if all the triggers are loaded in, then we can just like drop down into the last room and pull the like the light cord. And because of that, we can skip doing all the puzzling and save some time. But there we go. We talked to Langston over there. He's pretty cool. We're not going to be seeing him at all anymore for the entirety of the run. And now we're going to be doing another shieldy, of course. So we have to hit a couple of triggers before we can start the boss fight. And we weren't able to do shieldies before this because we didn't actually have 2 control points to teleport between. But now we do. So normally this is the area where I would have had donations play, but because of this skip, we do not have a very long, boring elevator ride anymore. We now just kind of go over here and then drop down. Perfect. So this boss fight that's coming up isn't super difficult, but it can be kind of scary. There's a lot of bosses that, well, let's just say that this boss fight used to be scary. We're going to do another neum right here. Oops, actually not just yet. We have one more trigger to hit. So I'm going to let my energy go back up. So normally we used to fight this boss as the intended way. We would start the cutscene. It was really cool cutscene, and then we would fight him, and it was a hard boss fight. But you know, if you were good at the game, you were okay. However, that's not the case anymore. So as you can see, there's a TV over there. So what we're gonna do is we're going to start the cutscene and then back out of it. And this is going to put us back to our control point. However, we have just hit all the triggers that we needed to spawn in the boss. But we're not going to go into it the intended way. Instead, we're going to be doing it a little bit different. So we're going to do a shieldy down to logistics. And then this is one of the harder shieldies in the game because you have to like land very precisely. So hopefully it goes well. Oh, okay. Whew, that was a little scary, but we got it. We need to land on this platform. We can't land down there. And as you can see, the boss is not looking too great. So he's just going to be hanging out up there. We're going to be killing all the cannon fodder first because they're going to be dropping down. But yeah, his AI is just never going to work. So he's going to be broken for quite a while. So normally what I like to do here is I like to clean up all these guys. Perfect. And now we can just have him stand still and shoot him in the face. So normally he'd be like down on the ground. He'd be throwing things at us. He'd be very tanky. But right now he's just kind of vibing. So we're just going to let Salvador hang out around up there. finish him off, and that is the only boss fight in the entire game. And as you can see, it was very, very difficult. But yeah, that is just kind of a consequence of Shieldy. And now we touched a TV and we can fly, which makes, again, perfect sense. So this is like our bread and butter tool for a lot of the out of bounds section in this game, especially in the other categories, because in the other categories you do a lot more out of bounds sections that are a lot more difficult, and this is kind of what enables us to travel just pretty much wherever we want. It's great.
Okay.
So now that we have fixed a couple of things, we have gained control of the Panopticon again, and now we can go save our brother, who we've been trying to save this entire time. And yeah, Jesse is going to do another shieldy right here. I used to like say that every single time we got a new power, we would break the game in some way, and we did use the levitation to break this area a little bit. We still technically are, but not in the same way. Oh, where am I? Oh, there we go. I know where I am now. Perfect. So this is his cell. As you can see, he has broken out, but he has turned himself into the executive sector. So it turns out he was just going to show up there anyway, even if we didn't do anything. But thankfully, Dylan is finally here. And unfortunately, he has been taken over by the Hiss. So we're going to go back there and talk to him. And we're also going to do another little skip. Normally we would talk to Emily here, and she would be like, hey, here's the key to go talk to your brother, and then we go talk to him. However, we have a very tiny little skip that saves like 10 seconds if you do it first try, and if you miss it, you lose like 20 or 30. But it's a marathon, so if we lose the time, it's not as big of a deal. So yeah, this is called Fates of the Emily skip. We do have the best skip names in the entirety of the speedrun community, and I will not be taking criticism of that. So we're going to be trying to basically teleport into the room above this in order to talk to our brother Dylan. And thankfully, this is not a real run, because otherwise my run would be dead. Press again. There we go. And here he is. Hey, Dylan, you're looking good. So we're going to skip some dialogue here. You have to skip it line by line, and you have to be matching space. Thankfully, the community opted out to not do that, because it would be very unfair for people who didn't have free scroll mouses. So because of that, we have a macro which lets us all skip it at the same time, and it's very fair, and we don't have to destroy our hardware or our hands to do so. So we just talked to Dylan, and basically he's taken over by the Hiss, and he kind of tells us about something that the FBC did that's relating to Jesse and Dylan's childhood, where they found a slide projector in a garbage-like area, and it turns out it opened portals to other dimensions, which basically killed everybody in their town except for them. And then during this, Dylan got captured by the FBC, and he's been in prison for a long time. Wow, that was actually perfect. So now we're gonna be heading over there. This level is one of the few levels in the game that doesn't have a whole lot of soft lock triggers. There's only one right here, and this one is very scary. So very careful here. Okay, whew. You have to like land on a little ledge, and you can't really stand on it, you'll fall off. So you basically have to land on it, touch it, and then immediately fly off and hope that you don't die. But basically the slide projector is still around, and that's not good for us. So we're gonna go take it and try to close it now, because it turns out the Hiss is actually coming from there. So we have more out of bounds navigation, and then we're trying to hit, again, more triggers. So if you ever see me like not go to like directly to the end of the level, typically the reason for that is that I am trying to hit invisible triggers around the map. We're gonna land right here. Some of these platforms that are invisible you can stand on, some you can. Again, it's with this game, and especially with this out of bounds navigation, this is like hundreds of hours of practice trying to remember where everything is, what I can and can't do, because you have to be very careful when you're navigating this area. But here we go. We are at the very last fight of this entire section. This is one of the few levels that actually has a lot of combat in it. And it's actually very difficult. So it's kind of a good thing that we can basically avoid it as much as we can. So I'm going to let my powers recharge right here. This is kind of a little cheat spot. Enemies can't really hit you. Not the ones that are like very dangerous. And as you can see, the hitboxes are a little bit wonky. We're going to hit him right here. And this is going to spawn some enemies in right there. And then we're going to fight this guy in a very specific way, because he likes to dodge our attacks. So I'm basically going to be throwing these in a specific way to where he can't dodge them as easily. And of course, he has 1 HP. There we go. And we're going to get a few collaterals, let them explode on each other. Awesome. And then we should have one enemy that is going to be spawning in super late. I'm going to grab this. Should spawn in like right in front of us. Perfect. All right, that fight went really well. So now we have learned the location essentially of the where the actual thing is, the slide projector, and now we have to get there. So it turns out it is in the research sector, which is where we met Marshall earlier, and now we have to get there. Unfortunately, though, there is something called the ashtray maze, which is going to be blocking us from getting in there very easily. So we're going to go to parapsychology. So basically, the game wants us to get the way, like the key for it from the janitor. Unfortunately, the janitor's on vacation. You know, it's very understandable. For Finn, holiday is holy, so we can't get contact with him very easily. So this entire level is basically Jesse trying to find Ahti, the janitor. Normally you're supposed to like go through the entirety of the maintenance sector doing a bunch of stuff trying to find him. Of course, we're not going to do that. So we're going to do a shieldy right over here. That was actually a really good one. That's one of the newer ones that was found out. Normally we had to do like a really tough skip, but thankfully we don't have to do that anymore. So we're gonna come over here. So this is the ashtray maze. This is the best section of the entire game if you're playing it casually, and I'm kind of glad we are going to be skipping this entirely in the speed run, purely for the simple fact that it is very cool that you guys get to watch the run and then you can experience it yourself. If you haven't played the game before and you were really excited for this part, I'm sorry, but we're going to be completely skipping over it. So we have another shieldy. So normally when we get that like broke find the janitor, it wants us to go through the entire maintenance sector doing this huge chase around trying to grab him. We're just going to do a shieldy and go to the end. Ooh. This should be fine. It's gonna be a little slow, but it should be okay. Normally we're able to get a little bit farther, but that is not a big deal at all. So I'm gonna open my map up here. As you can see, we're gonna be going to a very specific spot, and it's in the void, so it can be kind of hard to see. This one isn't too bad. We do have a couple of landmarks like that thing right there. However, sometimes it is very scary. So we're gonna land right here. I'm gonna hit this button. So 38:44, that's what it says on my timer. So 39:44. So we should be good to go at 40:04. Okay. We hit that button right there. Normally the game wants you to wait for this elevator or this lift, I guess, and that's gonna pull us all the way over here. Unfortunately, we can't like just cross this gap and immediately start going. We have to wait for a 90-second timer. So we're going to be waiting for that right there as we cross over. It's easier to like head over here because there are no enemies, and along with that, it's just closer to the trigger that spawns out in the void there. So now would be a great time for a few donations.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit more about Take This. If you'd like to continue supporting Take This after the marathon, I actually have a Patreon account at patreon.com/takethisorg, where you can pledge your support on a monthly basis. Also, if you buy games at humblebundle.com, you can choose Take This as your charity of choice to support with your purchases. And finally, for Those of us who enjoy tabletop gaming, which I do, Dr. B of Take This helped create a D&D campaign titled Gardens of Fog, which acts as an allegory for dealing with anxiety and depression. You can pick up a copy at dmsguild.com, and part of the proceeds will be donated to Take This.
Awesome.
Something up ahead.
So we hit the trigger. The way that I know I hit the trigger is we got the little soundtrack multimedia pop up in the down below, and as you can see, you know, some weird stuff is going on. Again, this is a very weird game, so it's kind of hard to explain the story, even if I had like 3 hours to do it. Just play this game yourself. It's absolutely fantastic and one of the best games I've ever played.
Really just
There we go. Awesome. So I'm gonna do this right here. Put that on.
Amy's cassette player.
So now that we have our key to the ashtray maze, we can skip it. So normally, like, the game wants you to like go through the ashtray maze, and it's a really cool section. You're powered up. It's got great music. We're gonna completely ignore that, but I promise this is still a really cool skip, so it makes up for it. This split used to be the hardest split in the entire run, and was the absolute bane of my existence. I hated this split because we have to basically activate 6 siphons. And we have to do it while we're under fire from very powerful enemies. Each siphon takes 7 seconds to activate. Also, we have this little skip right here. This is why I've opened the map, is I'm using it to navigate the complete darkness. One second, just still getting my bearings. I think we should be okay. We use it to completely navigate the darkness and to get our way over here. I think I'm very high, aren't I? Yep, I'm very high. That's fine. We're gonna slowly drop down. As you can see, this is the bridge we want to land on. Perfect. So that's the first part of the skip. The next part of the skip is basically, like I said, there's 6 siphons. Each of them takes super long to activate, and they're super dangerous, or at least they used to be. Before Shieldy, it was basically a coin toss whether or not your run died here, because there's one part of it where if you get bad RNG, you lose a minute. You just straight up lose a minute, and there's very little recovery. And when you're at the higher levels for this game, losing a minute, there's no recovery. You're not going to be able to get a PB. But thankfully, because of Shieldy, we are able to hit the triggers in such a weird way that we can skip that problem entirely. It is one of the few contributions I've made to the game. I'm not a big router, so because of that, I've never really been big on like finding skips. This particular version of the skip is the only thing I've ever found, and it is No Fighty Satellite is what it's called. And thank goodness, because I don't know if I would still be running this game as much as I do if I did not find that. So we're gonna get out of bounds here, and I'm trying to I'm trying to pull out all 4 of these things. There's the first one, second one, third one, and fourth one. So what we just did right there is the game is trying to pull a cutscene. However, we haven't hit all the triggers, so the game doesn't want to pull the cutscene. So what we're going to do here is use this to get back in bounds by an interaction prompt. The game is trying to pull a cutscene, and we're basically going to hit the triggers in out of order, so now it spawns a cutscene in the wrong spot. And because of this, it breaks the siphons that we have to use, so instead of 6 siphons now, we only need to do 3 of them. So we need to watch this entire cutscene, or not this entire cutscene. We need to watch part of the cutscene. It'll automatically stomp. That means it hit all the triggers that we needed it to hit, and we're gonna back out. And now we're gonna be doing another Shieldy to get to the 4th siphon. And if we enter the area in a very specific way from a large height, we completely skip spawning in all the enemies except for 2 of them, and those 2 that we spawn in do not care about us at all, so we basically just completely despawn all the enemies and get to do the hardest siphon for free. No Fighty Satellite, this is what it's called. Literally my favorite skip in the entire game. We need to get out of bounds here. Sometimes it can be a little annoying in this part. Go. We're going to gain some height. That should be plenty. Then we're going to slowly fade in over here. Normally you could do this a lot faster. However, we had a bit of wonkiness. We're going to try and get over here as much as we can. We basically want to land from a certain height in a specific spot. Then hopefully these guys shouldn't be aggroed to us. He should just be kind of floating there casually. Looks like he is, and there we go. 4th siphon / 1st siphon done. The other 2 are down there, but we don't need to worry about them. And then the 5th and the 6th siphon are, I don't want to jinx it, but they are a little bit easier. So we have a lot of enemies over here. We're not going to be really fighting them because, as you can see, they're level 6. And other than like our launch ability, we're not really leveled up to fight with them. We don't have health mods or upgrades or anything that would make us, you know, on even footing. So we're going to skip all these fights. Perfect. We're going to jump on this satellite. We should have only 1 siphon left. I've lost a run on every single siphon in this entire area before, including this one. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Those shots are landing a little close. Ooh. Okay, we're good. Whew. That can always be a little bit scary. But thankfully, the siphons have been cleansed. And now we're going to reach Polaris, who's the voice in our head earlier, who's also captured in that. I don't know how this game works. We're going to skip that cutscene and get a fake credit sequence. Normally I'd like to plan with the like tech and people to like stop the timer and pretend like the run is over. However, we're not gonna be doing that. But this game has a fake credit sequence where the ending for it is literally just Jesse gets infected by the hiss and then you just lose. And I remember playing this casually and I got really upset here because I was like, that's it? That's how it ends? But and then I started seeing this and I'm like, oh, I don't think the game's over yet. So we're gonna let this cutscene play out. We can't actually skip it properly. I'd have to Alt F4 and that's just a mess. So we're gonna let it play through. In the meantime, let's get a donation in if we can.
Absolutely. Well, we've got some prizes available. You can type !prizes in chat to see what is available. And in addition to the daily prizes, we also have a bonus set of prizes to give away to anyone who donates on any day during the marathon. Additionally, we're excited to have 2 grand prizes this year. Take This is offering a grand prize for anyone who wants to try their hand at streaming or upgrade their current setup. The prize includes a mic, keyboard, and headset. Any donation you make during the marathon enters you into the drawing for that prize, and remember, every donation goes to support mental health.
Awesome. So Jesse has been infected by the hiss, and this game is basically showing what happens when you get infected by the hiss. And it turns out it is the worst possible thing ever. It makes you work a 9-to-5 government office job. Truly the scariest thing I've ever seen. So we're gonna scan a couple of forms there, deliver some mail, and just, you know, really just milk how awful an internship could be at one of these companies. So essentially this is a nightmare loop that Jesse is gonna have to attempt to break out of. There's Ahti. Ahti's pretty cool. Hey Ahti. This is Trench. He's gonna have us deliver mail to him, and we get to do it all again, but this time we're cleaning up coffee cups. Once again, literally the scariest thing that I can think of.
Can't feel anything.
You can actually kind of mess up these prompts. There's kind of a rhythm and a pace to them, because if you like try and interact with things too early, it just doesn't work. So you have to be a little bit careful here. You can lose a couple of seconds if you're not paying attention. And then I'm going to try what's called a fake neum. When you mantle into a cutscene, it tries to put you both where you mantle and where the cutscene is trying to place you. This literally saves 0 time, but it looks kind of funny. Normally it should take us back to the notice board, but it should put us right in front of the mail tube thing if we do it right. Yes, we did. Awesome. So yeah, it teleports us over there. However, we just end up right here because of that. It's literally saves us 0 time because you can make it to that mail tube before. So it's kind of just funny, but I'm glad I was able to get it.
We'll find a way to push them out.
But here we go. Jessie is starting to kind of use her own powers and a copy of Polaris that was implanted into her mind in order to break out. Again, weird stuff going on. If you like weird stuff, definitely play this game. Then of course we got a couple of versions of Jessie kind of just, you know, hanging out, having a good time while we're making our way through. But we're coming up to the actual last part of the game. We're going to be finding the slide projector, and we're going to be working hard to both save our brother Dylan and also save everybody in here. Also, if you're at this part in casually, take your time in this Ocean View Motel. Oh, whoops. Because there are like, all these are completely unique posters and they're all very cool. Also, you have this fun little cutscene right here that I unfortunately do not have time to show you. But here we go. We have broken out of the nightmare. We have our powers back. We have our abilities back. The board is coming up to help us out and is going to supercharge us up. So normally the hardest enemies have been like level 6-ish. In this section, they're going to be level 30. But don't worry, Jessie's going to be on even footing in a couple of ways. So we're going to be getting through this area as fast as we can, doing some stamina management. And we're going to have a couple of skips at the end here. Because of course we are. So normally you'd have to fight a bunch of enemies, and it's a really cool, like, last combat area. However, we're going to be completely ignoring all of that. Ooh, it's taking a little bit of damage. That's not amazing, but that's okay. Come over here. 1, 2. So basically, we're just like able to dash to the triggers to the next platforms, and then along with that, there is a hole in the wall that we're gonna be using to skip the final fight. So I have to be a little careful here because there's a lot of invisible stuff going on, and it's very easy to die if you aren't careful. So I'm gonna be very cautious coming over here. Dashing at the right time. That's going to keep us up on this platform without dying. And then come over here and then lift up. All right, so now we're going to be aiming for a specific spot. Okay. Awesome. We made it through the hole. And then when we talk to Dylan right there, time is going to be ending. So that's going to be coming up in a moment here. Just got to climb this evil looking pyramid. Then we're coming over here, and time.
GG.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is always a really fun run to show off, and I'm really glad to do it for a good cause. If you want to see more of me, I do a lot of speed runs of a lot of different games. Control is my bread and butter, but I've also done like Mass Effect 2 or the remake of Thief, just really cool speed runs. So if you want to find me, you can find me at twitch.tv/demonicrobots. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. As you can see, Dylan is still alive. He's not doing so good, but he's okay now. Portal has been shut down, and Jessie is just overall being a super cool badass. So if you want to check this game out, this is Control. It's set in the Alan Wake universe, so if you know those games as well, I would highly recommend it. But this is a super fun game. If you want to learn the speedrun for it, make sure to head over to the Discord. You can find a link to it through speedrun.com/control. It's a really helpful community. There's a lot of really unique categories with a lot of different angles. You could do all bosses, you could do the DLC, which gives you some new game plus stuff. You can do 100%, you could do this category, you could do any percent without the shield glitch. There's really a lot of categories, and there's something for everyone. And a glitchless one too, if that's what you're interested in. But before we go, oh, she didn't say the line. Normally she says Shawshank Redemption and then talks about that. But for whatever reason, she didn't say it. So I'm going to kick it back over to the host here. Again, thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day.
Sounds good, Demonic. Thank you so much for this super fun run of Control. I definitely want to play this now. Okay, everyone. Well, let's talk donation targets. We're at $18 out of 250 for Antechamber Any Percent Showcase. We're still at 250 out of 325 for the random seed for virtual highlight. Now, something that you may not know, if you want to donate, you can choose to put your donation towards a donation target and a bid war at the same time. You don't have to pick between one or the other. We would love it if you chose some donation incentives and some bid war incentives to put your donation towards. It is so helpful and it helps us to see more fun runs. And that's why we're here, right? Is to see more fun speedruns. Okay, well, as sad as it is for me to say, this is my last shift on the hosting mic for Speedrun Ragnarok 2022. It has been an honor and a privilege to be with you, but I'm not quite done yet. I will be back with Lumberjack tomorrow, first, bright and early in the morning. I'm doing this for you. I'm not a morning person, but I am doing it because I love Speedrun Ragnarok. But don't worry, everyone, I am leaving you in the capable hands of Bahamut X. And with that, we are going to take a quick break, but don't worry, we'll be right back soon.